evening, everybody, and thank you for attending the third Wound Healing Society webinar of 2025. I'm Kath Berge, I'm the chair of the Education Committee, and I'm delighted to bring you something new, a debate on tissue engineered grafts. Please note, if you have any questions throughout this evening's presentation, use the Q&A box and we'll address as many questions as possible at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and it will be interactive. So I will now introduce our moderator, Rumana Aslam.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm Rumana Aslam. I'll be moderating the debate. Very excited about this. As everybody knows, there's lack of clarity on classifications, goals of care, perspectives of clinicians versus researchers versus patients on the grafts, cellular versus scaffold. This webinar is meant to be an exchange of ideas, friendly discussion starters, and the team leads do not control what the participants say. I will be monitoring the time and I will let participants know that they have a minute remaining. So please make your discussions concise. Thank you. And now we are going to toss the coin or to see which team will start. Team Cellular versus Scaffold. Actually, there's a pre-debate question. Single choice first.
Lucian or Tugba, one of you call heads or tails.
Well, I go with heads.
Okay.
All right, then tails.
It is tails.
All righty. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Can you see it? 9. I am a wound care full-time doctor as a profession, and I'm running the wound care fellowship at the Wake Forest Baptist. And my team tonight is composed of a mix of clinicians, researchers, a couple industry or so. The biggest question that I have as a clinician is really how to choose. You know, when you think about the field of grafting, what's available out there for treatments, you know, the world jungle comes to mind a lot. And so I've tried to put this different perspectives of how to choose one of these treatments for our patients. And there's multiple intersecting considerations here. Probably some of the biggest ones are the effectiveness and the safety. But in real life, when you have these circles and all of these different perspectives, I imagine that these circles are all of them spinning at the same time. So it's like always a moving target. It's like that game, pin the tail on the donkey. And the landscape is really, really interesting, and the way the decisions are made are interesting as well, and you don't always get what you want. So one of the perspective that I want to bring in is that the idea to put some kind of a graft as a treatment is stems from observations made a long time ago that attempts to do skin grafting were made in wounds that we could not obtain complete coverage of the wounds. The application of the skin, even partially, was stretched out and pieces of skin. You know, it changed the biology of the wound. So that's where the idea came, is that putting cells into the wound just changed the biology, changes the way that the wound heals. And it gives a signal for the cells, for the fibroblasts to go into the right directions. Historically, there have been a number of attempts to isolate different growth factors that the cell may bring into the wound, but these attempts, many of them have failed. And that's where the idea came in. Let's just put the cells into, although they're not autologous cells, just the fact that we put cells, and those cells, they respond to the environment of the wound and will bring the correct and the specific type of growth factor that is required to change the biology of that wound. So, Dr. Oropalo, I would like to take over.
All right.
Thank you, Luz. So my background, I'm a vascular surgeon and general surgeon, and my specialty niche is wound care. I'm in academics with Northwell Health here in New York City, and I do a lot of research and have a fellowship in that's accredited by the American Board of Wound Medicine and Surgery. My perspective is that we do a lot of grafts, and we use acellular and cellular, different types of grafts. We do use predominantly amnion, and some of the biggest challenges in the field include the standardization of use, understanding the differences between grafts and the clinical implications, and that cellular grafts may have the advantage of cellular integration, while scaffold grafts may be more easily removed.
The next speaker for our cellular team, Asmat Salim.
Hi, I'm a basic scientist. I'm not a clinician, and we work with different kind of wounds related to, for instance, the acid. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I'm a basic scientist. We work in Pakistan. I'm in Asia, and we basically, I'm not a clinician, and we work with experimental models, and we do different. We have different models like acid burn wounds and different other kinds of wounds, also diabetic wounds, and we use both hydrogels and the cellular transplantation of basically using stem cells, and these stem cells are isolated from the umbilical cord, and we see different advantages of cellular transplantation, because they are integrated well, and they also secrete paracrine factors, and and heal well. And we have different kind of problems in case of the grafts or hydrogels, and we use also patches as well, and we have problems injecting these hydrogels as well, because of their different viscosities.
Thank you. We have two more speakers for our first round. Bok Burkima. Dr. Burkima, I see that he may not be present. So, Doctor, I'm going to speak for him.
He's muted, actually.
Sorry. Yeah. Hi. So, my name is Bouke Boekema. I'm a basic researcher. I work on preclinical research projects related to burn wounds. I've been working on various collagen-based scaffolds. And there is, in fact, ample evidence that cellular grafts are way better than the scaffolding material alone. For example, there have been studies where dermal substitutes without cells have been compared with the same substitutes, but then supplemented with different kinds of cells, showing that those wounds heal much better than the empty dermal substitutes. And another perfect example is the fact that for certain skin substitutes like Integra or in some cases Metriderm, these dermal substitutes are applied on wounds and left to develop a granulation tissue. So the cells have to proliferate and migrate into the material before the skin transplantation can be performed. This is a clear example of why you would need, in fact, active cells in your substitute. If you I think Lucian Vlad also mentioned this. These cells are kind of factories producing all kinds of growth factors, among other things. And if you only apply an empty dermal scaffold, there are no cues present in that material. So the cells, you have to guide them towards improved wound healing. So when you add specific subpopulations of cells in the cellular grafts, this will allow a continuous production of relevant growth factors, and in that way result in a much better outcome.
Thank you. Your time's up. We give time to the last speaker.
We have another 1 minute and 10 seconds. David Zabel.
Thank you. I'm one of the plastic surgeons at the Medical College of Georgia and was asked to be on Team Cellular. My experience with these products is, I think, fairly extensive. I've used over 35 of them over the course of many years in practice. My expertise as a plastic surgeon is really in autologous split thickness skin grafting, in addition to using the different cellular products. The thing that I kind of reflect and look back on is, after thousands of autologous skin grafts, is when the skin grafts fail, what exactly is the environment in which they're failing? And I think we only have a visual environment as a surgeon, and we don't really understand the microenvironment of the cells in those situations where the graft fails. Sometimes it's easy to see it.
20 seconds left.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just 20 seconds left.
I didn't hear what you said.
20 seconds left.
Okay. And I think that generally speaking, that the cellular environment of these cellular products and the grafts that we place on these has a better ability than our own autologous skin to kind of manage the microenvironment of the wound towards continuation of the wound healing cycle in a progressively forward manner.
Lucian, the time is up for the first round.
Yes, we'll turn this over to Team Scaffolding now.
Are we up, timer? Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Tugba Ozdemir from South Dakota School of Mines. I'm an engineer, biomedical engineer, but a training in wound healing, scaffold development, particularly not only synthetic, but also, natural. And this is one of the images from diabetic cells growing in our silk-based hydrogels and producing type 1 collagen. So as you know, I will be leading the scaffolding team, and my team is strong proponent of the need of a scaffold, the need of an architecture, because the concerted timeline of the wound healing entails overlapping series of stages, and these scaffolds not only give the ability to tailor a treatment that could provide necessary agents, but also gives practitioner the spatio-temporal. This is our strength, control for the desired cellular outcome. The other thing is, it is hard to control cells, like they are plastic and they can undergo senescence. But with using the scaffolding technology, we can, overcome some of these challenges. Some advantages of scaffolds can be listed as their affordability. They are more affordable, they are scalable, and we can control them to elicit antibacterial or antifungal protection. They can be controlled degradation so that we can capture the concerted timeline of wound healing process, and they are tailorable. There is first generation, second generation, and third generation materials. And right now we are in the third generation tissue engineering materials, which are bioactive. But I also want to mention always there is some bottlenecks and there's room for growth. For example, some bottlenecks with scaffolds could be the complexity of the native microenvironment. So this gives us a chance to learn more and, be more detailed about our design. But also, as mentioned, biomimetic architecture by cells are sometimes, it's a developmental process. So as we learn more, we can capture those. So with that, I don't want to continue speaking, but instead, I want to give the stage for our first round of speakers, Dr. Dennis Orgel first, and then Dr. Angela Gibson will continue. So Dr. Orgel, would you like to continue?
Thanks very much. 27 years ago, I got in my car and drove from California to Boston, and I landed in a laboratory of mechanical engineering at MIT, directed by Dr. Yunas, and we made scaffolds. And at the time, they worked pretty well. We developed them in animal models and then transferred to humans. And we felt that adding cells would be better. And I think I was the first one that ever put cells into a scaffold. And in animal models, it works great. But then I became a plastic surgeon and found that for the vast majority of my patients, scaffolds alone work very well if you know how to use them. And they can be made out of native materials from animals or from humans, or they can be semi-synthetic or totally synthetic like polyurethane scaffolds. So there are a lot of design principles that can be used. And as a plastic surgeon, aesthetics are very important to me. We use a lot of these in the face after cancer resections, and we can get some really beautiful cosmetic results, some of which we published. And then we have two other papers from my colleagues, not myself, who have used these that will be coming out shortly, showing really nice results in the face. So there are many complexities making these scaffolds. Choosing the right one is one of the previous speakers says can be a difficult challenge, but used correctly, they simplify our reconstruction and can give excellent cosmetic results. Thank you.
I'll continue on that same thought. I am a burn surgeon scientist at the University of Wisconsin, and so in taking care of many different wounds, including burn wounds, I see things that have a low depth of injury and a very deep depth of injury. And I know that the healing occurs much better if that scaffold, obviously if the native scaffold is there. But when we look at a wound that doesn't have any dermis present and it doesn't have that natural architecture, if we expect a wound to heal in that way, the body tries to lay down the granulation tissue. And if that continues to have to happen, that's going to lead to an incredibly long inflammatory state, which impacts the ability of the keratinocytes to ultimately migrate and proliferate over that to close the wound and create the function of skin. And so utilizing a artificial dermis or a scaffold in some manner, and there are a bazillion different flavors of that, which are really challenging to determine which ones to use, as has been mentioned. But that allows the body to repopulate that with cells and tissue to form that architecture that our native cells require in order to migrate and proliferate in the appropriate fashion. If you put keratinocytes in suspension and spray them on a cell, they die because they don't like to be in suspension. If you use an epithelial autograft and you put it on fascia, if you have a very large burn and you don't have a wound bed that's prepped with a dermis they will be very fragile and they'll be subject to epidermolysis. And if you have a necrotic wound that has dead tissue there and doesn't have a good scaffold, that also will not heal. So I think the scaffold itself, obviously in an ideal world, you would have a scaffold that had autologous cells infiltrated into it, as was mentioned earlier. But I think the scaffold has to be there to allow the cellular infiltration.
And since we have less than 1 minute left, I just want to add one thing to use our time, is that this will also, the architecture that is laid out with a scaffold would also help time-wise and efficiency to give cells to, focus on what is necessary and guide them. So, of course, there are some scaffolds that are never be cellularized. They are non-degradable, but the scaffold science is open to design, and definitely when they work together with cells, they have the potential and power to, communicate the response that we wanted. And I think this is the biggest advantage of scaffolds from our point of view for the first round.
Thank you, both teams. That was fantastic and staying on time. So now is the exciting time when everybody gets to vote or fill out the poll for which team made the better arguments in round one.
Yeah. So host and panelists cannot vote. That's not fair. Do we get the results now, or we just review the results at the end?
Good question.
As of right now, scaffolding is winning.
By one, or maybe?
By 3. It is 8-5.
All righty. It's on.
Keep going, keep going. You have 2 more rounds.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started.
All right. Shall we start round 2?
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So for a second round, for a cellular team, we're gonna have the following speakers present. Diana Borgueno Vega, Matthew McQuillan, Fatima Jamil, Jaydeep Banerjee, and Jeff Litt. So we have 6 minutes and 50 seconds. And Diana Vega, are you here? I guess she's missing. I'll speak for her. Dr. Vega is a general surgeon. She's focusing on surgical wounds, and she has 15 years reconstructions. She does prefer mycutaneous flaps, autologous skin grafts, and looks like she has experience with a number of types of grafts out there. And she finds that the biggest challenge in tissue grafting is the changing nature of these wounds, as well as the limited access to the tissue grafting, obviously related to insurance coverage. Our next speaker for the session, I feel like we have a spy among our midst, Matthew McQuillan. Are you here, Dr. McQuillan? So, Dr. McQuillan, he's got extensive experience with actually a scaffolding graft with Restrata, and he feels like the biggest challenges in this field is education of the healthcare providers to see the difference between different types of grafts, synthetic, engineering matrices, synogenics, human allogenic matrices, and where each of these products fits in the best clinical practice. So it's kind of like we have spoken. It's such a diversity, so many choices. It's hard to figure out which is which. I think we're doing pretty good with the time in our sessions. And the next speaker is Fatima Jamil. Are you here?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
All right. So I am a PhD researcher specializing in regenerative medicines with a focus on wound healing and stem cell therapy. I, with my team, explores the therapeutic potential of preconditioned mesenchymal stem cells in full thickness burn wound. So I'm here to support the use of cellular grafts because they play an active role in healing. They comprise live cells, often stem cells that actively participate in the healing process. They secrete certain growth factors, paracrine factors mainly, ultimately modulate inflammatory response or even differentiate into dysfunctional tissue types. So they accelerate recovery or improving the tissue integrations, means they don't just reside there, but they actually do something. So they are more effective. They support, guide, and take part in healing at all around. They are not just a part of the treatment; they are active players in the recovery or regeneration process. So they involve in the complete regenerations without scarring, sometimes, and making the process quicker and often lead to the better results.
Thank you. And our next speaker, the fifth speaker for our session is Jaydeep Banerjee. Are you
Thank you,
here,
Dr.
sir?
Vlad. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vlad. So I have transitioned in my career from, I'm a cell molecular biologist by training, and then I've transitioned from preclinical to clinical research. So my argument, I'd start off by saying that a scaffold will not heal a wound. It's the patient's own cells, the patient's own wounded cells that will actually heal the wound. The scaffold is just a support. So while scaffolds are great for younger, healthier patients, if the patient's own physiology is compromised as we grow older, as we develop comorbidities, just putting a scaffold in there will not help. So that's why you need growth factors, you need additional cellular support to basically supplement what our body's own cells were supposed to do. And by that I mean like signaling, releasing, as well as replenishing growth factors, because a lot of scaffolds is growth factors, but you don't have a way to replenish it. So having a cellular system helps in replenishing those growth factors, but also, as Dr. Vlad mentioned and other speakers mentioned in the first round, it basically takes a tissue and personalizes it to a patient, because your cells can now detect the microenvironment and release, cytokines, growth factors, microRNAs, all of that is needed for that patient at that phase of wound healing. Because as you know, every patient is different, every stage of wound healing is different. And so having a dynamic system in there definitely will help. Now, I want to touch base on a couple of quick points, which I think one of the speakers in the last round had mentioned, that a shelf life is a concern with a lot of these products. That has been largely taken away in a lot of these new advances that have come up, where even tissues with cells in there can have a substantial amount of shelf life, as opposed to earlier where it used to be like you have to use it within 7 days. Now they can last up to 2 years, 3 years. And then I'll finish off by saying that when we are clubbing cellular and acellular grafts, we need to realize not all cellular grafts are all same, or even all acellular grafts are same, because you have bioengineered tissue which have one cell type. You have other tissues like these amnions which have multiple cell types, which can react in different ways, different kind of growth factors. So I think that's why it leads to the need of head-to-head studies as opposed to cellular versus acellular. But if in an ideal scenario, if we had a cellular, and also coming to the point that it's expensive, right? A lot of these younger, healthier wounds may not need something as expensive as this. But in an ideal world where we could have not worrying about shelf life, not worried about expense, then if you have a graft which has cells in there and a graft which is just a scaffold, I believe the cellular grafts would perform better than just the scaffolds in there. Thank you.
35 seconds remaining.
We have 30 more seconds. Is Jeff Litt here? I didn't think that I saw him. He's a burn trauma surgeon, and the biggest challenge that he sees is the local environment alteration to promote healing. So that's kind of like what we're saying, is that what the cells are bringing into the equation. And I really love your argument, Jaydeep, that the cells heals wounds and not really scaffold. So I think that is actually the winning argument for this debate. And with that, we turn it over to the scaffolding team.
be which cells? Depending on the stage, cells can be different and the wound healing. But let's continue with our next round of speakers. So in this round, we will have Dr. John Dorsky and Dr. Kenneth Burhop. So, and I hope you can see the screen.
So I am a general surgeon, an old general surgeon at this point, and I've been doing just wound care for the last over a decade, probably about 14 years. And what I would argue a little bit is that most of the, quote, cellular grafts we use are not really cellular grafts. I don't believe a dehydrated piece of amnion and chorion is transplanting live cells into a wound. What it is a scaffold to deliver a lot of growth factors, cytokines, and extra stuff that helps wounds heal. Scaffolds in appropriately selected circumstances have the advantage of replacing the skin's barrier function, and it can help retain water in a wound. It can help prevent infection of a wound and allow the host's cells to repopulate the wound with an adequate covering and get incorporated into that. So we're faced with multiple different cellular products that are available to us, but I would argue that they aren't really delivering cells. Some of the cellular products that are cryopreserved perhaps do deliver some cells, but I would say the bigger part of its promotion of healing is probably related to growth factors and cytokines and not the cells themselves. There are some new instruments that can actually take core biopsies from the host and be able to re-deliver those into a wound. And I think, yes, those have mesenchymal fat cells and cells that can be transplanted. But I don't believe the cellular products are really, it's primarily the exogenous cell you're delivering that's helping heal the wound. I think it's the host's cells that are healing the wound. That's it for me.
John, just one thing. You also mentioned Medicare and Medicaid about the grafts. Can you open a little bit on this too?
Well, I think we're in a tremendous transition phase where, you know, at least in this country, the LCDs that are applied for different Medicare locations now are allowing certain cellular products. And it's almost like whack-a-mole figuring out what product you can use. The other problem with the product is the incredible cost of these products. And I don't know that Medicare is going to be able to support that in the long run.
I think this could be something as a team, both teams, we can also discuss, just a pointer, not to win any argument. It's just in the end of the day, what matters will be on the shelf, what people will use and whether this will be covered. So these are kind of nice arguments. And thank you so much for your input, John. And next one in our group is Dr. Ken Burhop, Dr. Kenneth Burhop. And are you here, Ken?
I'm here. Yeah, no, thank you. And I thought John's remarks were spot on. So my background was I was the chief scientific officer at Integra for 8+ years, and I retired about 3 years ago. And since retiring, I now work with lots of startups and innovative companies all around in this space trying to figure it out. Over my tenure of doing this work, what I've convinced is that the body's pretty smart. We can't outfool it. And I think if you put it in a scaffold, the body will tell it what to do at the right time. It will bring in the cells. The argument about putting cells into it from a regulatory concern, a quality concern, shipping, reimbursement, the rest of it, don't know if it's necessary. When you look at the studies, maybe you get a little bit faster healing, but in the end, the outcomes are all the same. We get it like diabetic foot ulcers, you get about 40 to 60%, no matter what product. And there's over 150 different products out there right now. So I would make the argument there's no clear evidence to say adding the cells really does anything to benefit that. At the same time, we say we're adding cells, but everybody assumes, well, cells are good guys. They bring in good stuff. I'm sorry, when you put it in, the cell has a lot of components and it brings in good stuff, bad stuff. You don't know what it's all bringing in. And to make the assumption that if I put a cell in there, that new cell that's not even from the body, unless you take it autologous, has no idea what to deliver at what time and right there. So it's going to be dropping good things, bad things. So I think let the body do its own thing at the right time. And I'll take a little bit of a twist to kind of go for both of these groups here is that, my belief still is everybody's trying to come up with a silver bullet to say, well, we're going to have a cellular product or we're going to have an acellular product. Fact is, there is no silver bullet. I don't know. I worked on this for a long time. We tried to do it. You can't make one of those silver bullets. You need to fill in dermis. Maybe you need to put on some bioactive amniotic products to stimulate the wound healing. Then maybe you have to you definitely have to put on epithelial cells. So, I mean, it's a combination of doing how to really treat that wound to get what the outcome is. The flip side to that is who's going to pay for that? If we can't even pay for one scaffold, how are we going to be able to afford to pay for 3 treatments? But I think that's really the success is how do you get that last 20, 30% healing that nobody's been able to achieve? And the only way I think you can do that is with using multiple products and figuring it out at the right time. But the body's pretty remarkable. It can do a lot of things on its own.
Wow. In such a short time, such information, and thank you for sharing with us. And the last 20 minutes, I want to wrap up with another example from our member who couldn't attend today. He was telling about basically if you took a computer case and put in the hard drive and put in the RAM and put in the wiring and put in the motherboard and shook it all up together, what are the chances of having a computer that works in that? This is his comments. With that, I want to just stop sharing, and I guess it's gonna be another round.
Please, again, a poll for round 2. Which of the teams do you think made better arguments in round 2? I don't have the results, so I think Johanna will.
The votes are still coming in, but it is still Scaffolding in the lead right now. It is 7-5.
The gap is narrowing.
That is true. There's a little shift, right? Okay. Thank you all for voting. So we have a third round.
All right, I'm picking up a share screening again. In this round, we have 4 speakers planned. I think there's only 2 of the speakers here. I'm looking for Dr. Larson, for Kerry Herman, for Krishna Narayan, and for Shannon Mitchell. Is Dr. Larson here? I'll speak for him. As a clinician, a wound care, and a podiatrist, Dr. Larson identifies the biggest challenge, the availability of the products to clinicians and the coverage of products. He is also pointing out that the delivery of the active cells to the wounds allows the tissues to begin repairing without fully relying on the underlying cellular response of the host to heal the wound. So I guess that's a good point. And that's a potential response to Dr. Dorsky's comment that the growth factors are brought by the body's own tissues, and that's where I don't think I agree on that one. The wound is having trouble healing because the native cells are having difficulty putting out the right ingredients to get the cells to work in the right direction, and so that's why the delivery of fresh cells which again, those cells are not going to survive. The wound is a harsh environment, and those cells, when they are placed into this harsh environment, they're going to die. They will survive for, depends on the types of cells, 6 to 9 days sometimes. And while they're survive, they're putting out these growth factors that are responsive to that specific need, and it triggers the response from the native cells. So that's what I mean when I'm saying that the cellular grafts are just a drug delivery device. I haven't been able to put these growth factors into make them into gels and lotions and potions. As far as I know, there's only one growth factors they were able to identify, the VEGF, and that's a tiny little gel. It's just crazy expensive. So because we couldn't make these gels and with the growth factors, that's why we're bringing these cells to help the native tissue. Second speaker for our third round, Carrie Harmon. I think I saw you here.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, so my argument, I think that while collectively we're all professionals, obviously have an interest in wound healing, I think a lot of the industry some of the challenges we're facing is getting back to the basics of wound care, debridement, addressing vascular and arterial, as well as making sure that the wounds are free of infection. Ultimately, in the 25, 30 years that I've been in wound care, initially we have mostly scaffolding, such as collagen products. And, we've been able to heal wounds for a long time with scaffolding products. But what I have noticed in practice, and owning 3 practices, is that once we started using the cellular tissue products, if we were doing the things that we needed to do in the patients, we're adherent to care, vascular studies were done. We were able to establish arterial flow. We did debridement. We refashioned edges, and we provided moist wound healing. What we were able to do with those cellular tissue products is push those wounds to closure. I've used a variety from everything from chorion to porcine placentals. And at the end of the day, we still have to go back to wound bed preparation.
100% agreement with that. We have 3 more minutes, and I have a couple more speakers. Dr. Narayan, are you present? I didn't think I saw him. As a clinician and a full-time practitioner, Dr. Narayan identifies the biggest challenge, the graft integration. So that has to do with the ability of the cells, of the native cells, to respond to the stress. Dr. Mitchell, I didn't think that I saw you present in the group, and also a hardened clinician with a very long experience. And he actually identifies the same challenge, the poor preparation of the graft prior to the application of the graft is a problem. In the last couple of minutes here, I invite if any of Cellular team members to see if they have any thoughts. But what I would like to point out is I would give up that cellular grafts is maybe not always the best answer, but they have to think about what is common. So for large wounds with large defects, you do need to bring some kind of a scaffold to provide the guidance to that tissue. But what are the large majority of the wounds out there? I would argue that the largest majority of wounds that we're having difficulty healing are relatively small Wagner 2 diabetic foot wounds and venous leg ulcers. So those are wounds that don't miss a lot of substrate. They just need the cells into those. They need some kind of a kickstart to get them going in the right direction, and that's where the cellular graft can have this impact. If you can figure out a way to effectively figure out what graft and specifically address the wound, and I think that's a wish list for the future. I would also mention that a lot of the studies that are done out there, we don't have good standards by which we assess these grafts. So everybody thinks the standard of care, we know what it is, but nobody knows what it is, because in each study, the standard is different. And so that's a big problem as well that we are facing out there. We have a few more seconds. Does anybody in the Cellular team would like to add any thoughts?
I can add a couple of comments, Dr. Vlad, if you want.
Go ahead. I have 30 more seconds.
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll just comment on two things that I think Dr. Dosky and then Dr. Burhoff mentioned. One is, yes, a lot of these grafts, especially the cryopreserved, as you mentioned, they have done animal experiments to put it in an animal and actually see if the cells are being delivered. But also to keep in mind that these cells die within, like, most likely within a couple of days, because there's no nutrient supply to keep them alive. I think the biggest role is for them to jumpstart the signaling process, which is stuck. And then, as you said, the body is smart enough; it should trigger an autologous signaling mechanism to help the wound heal. And I really like Dr. Burhoff's comment that it's not really one product. I think it really the physician's decision on how bad the wound is, how many comorbidities are, and we really need a bag of products. None of these products are a miracle. You need to choose based on it. Maybe you start with a cellular, end with an acellular, try to keep the expenses down as much as possible.
Thank you to both teams for being on time. Well done. May I remind everybody to put in any thoughts or comments in the Q&A so we can have a discussion at the end?
We need to go.
One round for
One round.
Oh.
So this is our last round. Just a quick information before I introduce my last round of speakers about growth factors. So nowadays, actually, growth factors are so complex and so expensive, but we can use peptide aptamers. So biomaterial technology allows us to capture what is in the native microenvironment and tag it into scaffolds. So we can capture the effect with shorter peptides, just a reminder. And with that, with our last round, we have Dr. Daniel Cap for our first speaker. Because we have two more speakers showed up, this will be a shorter round, Dr. Cap. If you can do it for 2 minutes, that would be great.
Sure. No slides for me because I wanted to hear all the terrible arguments that everybody made on the other team, and then just rebut all of them. Chicken or the egg? And that's really the question: is which came first, the chicken or the egg? And the answer to the question is you need a scaffold because not all wound healing is skin, right? Some of the wound healing is actually beneath the skin, and I think that the team Cellular Grafts doesn't recognize that you have to heal beneath the skin beforehand. And the other thing that these scaffolds give you is a flexibility because we've added various things, including PRPs, stromal vascular fractional layers. We have added exosomes, and we've used combination of cellular tissues and grafted immediately onto scaffolds with thin epidermal grafts minced. So I think that the flexibility that you get with a scaffolding far exceeds that which you have with the cellular or the dehydrated cellular substrates. So I think it gives you a much more flexible tool. Now, in fact, in my practice, most of my patients are 90 years old and have major skin avulsion injuries, and we don't really have a need for creating the scaffolding construct. So I happen to end up using more sort of amniotic tissues or cellular grafts than I do scaffolding. But I think scaffolding is far more important, far more flexible, and will be the material of the future because of this due to the flexibility.
Thank you, Dan. So next speaker for our team is Dr. Garg Bhuneshwar. Dr. Bhuneshwar, can you also give your opinion about this?
Thanks, Tugba, and good morning from India to everyone. I'm Bhuneshwar Garg. I'm basically a GI surgeon, but I am into wound care innovations since last 20 years. And with my innovations, where we are able to change the wound environment, and with these wound environment changing natural scaffolds which we prepare, can practically ignite the super stem cells and regenerate any and every tissue And Tugba, you have some slides of mine. Can you show, or I should show my screen?
No, I have your remarks.
Can I show my screen?
You can, but we only have 2 minutes now. So
Just show one slide and it will be okay to everyone.
Okay, here we go.
We have 3.5 minutes.
We have two more speakers. Fateme, Dr. Fayaz Bash is also waiting.
I'm not able to share my slide. How can I? Anyway, but practically this is how the super stem cells, these are the prodromal cells which we can ignite, and we don't need any antibiotics and any kind of our wound care. This is the second beauty of this. The maximum time for a full thickness burned measured defect to heal is 21 days in our wound care. We have been able to revive and regenerate about 400 plus diabetic gangrene patients, and we have not done single amputation. We have done 38 end-stage cancer wound cases recured completely. So this is how I think beyond the scaffold versus non-scaffold, this is something going to be the next generation thing when we all come to the common platform and make this study available for everyone.
Well, thank you. Now, Dr. Fayaz Bash, can you also share your opinions about scaffolds?
Thank you. Sure, I try to keep it as short as possible. So there are pros and cons, but cell-free scaffold offer numerous advantages over cell-laden. I want to discuss the commercialization point of view, yes. So regarding the regulatory pathway, so the regulatory compliance is more straightforward for scaffolds. They usually classified as class 2 with 510K with a 90-day review process and usually 85% acceptance rate, which is way more straightforward than cell-laden scaffolds or products. And the scaffold do not need complicated procedures for which is typically required for advanced therapeutic products like complicated storage or distribution process, because they eliminate the need for a special condition to keep the cells viable, and which enables easier mass production at lower cost due to simpler handling and scalability. Sterilization is also less complicated for scaffolds, and there are more options for manufacturing scale up, and we have more liberty for like changing or scaling up from R&D or lab production prototyping to larger scale production. And also there are more options for personalized medicine or personalized treatment as we have more manufacturing options. I'm done.
Well, with that, I am wrapping our team's argument with thanking all of the members and everybody who joined. I think we all have interest in tissue engineering, and this will continue to, proceed. And I think we all learned so much, and thank you.
You want to go ahead and put your closing argument, Tugba?
You can go ahead.
Okay. I think this is a really interesting debate. Like I said, my own conclusion is there's certainly types of wounds where a scaffold is needed, but the large majority of wounds, I think the scaffold is there, because the large majority of the wounds that are difficult to heal, we just need the cells to work correctly. And I would make the argument that the cellular grafts are cheap. They have become expensive due to regulations. I can remember of hearing from colleagues in my department where having your own cell cultures was easy to do, but that's changed about 20 some years ago with regulation. So in the right settings, I think the cellular products could be the answer to much faster healing compared to scaffold grafts. Thanks for the great debate.
There are 2 comments in the Q&A for everybody. One is from Andrea Bachman. Says, I am thrilled. Everyone seems to know the best solution. What about the science? Cellular products not only deliver cellular advantages, but they also serve as scaffolds. So they provide double mechanism of action. Think about it. Comments for that or?
Well, I want to comment, but also make my own closing argument because, first of all, we are mimicking the native environment. Scaffolds are mimicking the native environment. So we are not against cells, but what we are saying is with scaffolds, you will have the power to overcome the challenges that you cannot overcome with cells only because we are aging. As soon as we are born, we start losing our ability to regenerate. And scaffolds can provide not only spatiotemporal architecture, but also overcome growth factor dependence or cellular uncontrolled differentiation or teratoma formation or, cell senescence. And like my teammates also pointed out, with the regulatory pathway for scaffolds are much easy, and with the development in biomaterial science, we can have the ability to produce much cheaper, with better effect, with shorter response, and with stronger and reproducible results. And the reproducibility is our biggest advantage as a scaffold team. And we are not like excluding cells. We want to attract the right cells at the right time because wound healing is not only one type of cells. I don't know if I speak so much, but I'm so excited about this subject. So
Thank you, Tugba. And then there's a question, can we get a copy of the visual presentations? Johanna and the team leaders?
There'll be a video, right?
Yes, everything is being recorded and will be on the YouTube channel in the next few weeks. We have a poll up, or is that finished?
I think we do have a final poll. And then we'll have the winner.
can we at least respond this poll?
You're not allowed to vote.
We are not allowed to vote. So will you share the results?
Just to make it clear to all the attendees, the panelists and the team leaders are not allowed to vote. So this is a fair voting.
It looks like everybody learned something from this debate. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, one person said no. I'm sorry.
You still getting votes in, Johanna?
I think we got the last one.
Okay.
It looks like for the 3 rounds, Cellular took 1 of them and Scaffolding took 2 of them. So it is 2-1. And then for the final poll, we all won because most of the people learned something.
That's great. So thank you, everybody, participants, team leaders and attendees for attending this, which was our first Wound Healing Society webinar debate. Brought to you by the Wound Healing Society.
Oh my God.
Okay, the Wound Healing Society Committee and Wound Healing U. As previously mentioned, the recording will be available in your member-only account on the Wound Healing U and on the Wound Healing Society YouTube channel, which is available to all in the next few weeks. Thank you very much, and good night, good morning, wherever you are.
Thank you.